My name is Haley Richardson, and I'm 29 years old. Tonight, I'm standing in my family's mansion driveway at midnight, clutching a single suitcase while my sister Victoria's engagement party continues inside. 30 minutes ago, my parents announced they were giving her $55 million as an engagement gift. Then they looked me dead in the eye and said, "Pack one suitcase and leave tonight. You're no longer our daughter." My phone just buzzed with a bank notification that made my blood run cold. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If this story sounds unbelievable, trust me, it gets worse. Hit that like button if you think family should stick together, and subscribe because this journey of betrayal and revenge is just getting started. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. 7 years ago, I transformed my parents' struggling $2 million marketing company into a $100 million empire. While my peers were partying through their 20s, I sacrificed everything, working 18-hour days to land major clients and develop revolutionary campaigns that changed how businesses connected with customers. Every strategy that made our company successful came from my mind, my effort, my sleepless nights spent perfecting presentations that would secure million-dollar contracts. Victoria had spent those same 7 years living like European royalty, funded entirely by our parents' endless generosity. She studied art history in Paris, learned photography in Rome, and spent summers lounging on yachts in the French Riviera. Every few months, she would call requesting more money for some new adventure or expensive purchase, and our parents would wire whatever amount she demanded without question. Meanwhile, I was generating 90% of our company's revenue, but I convinced myself the sacrifice was worthwhile because we were family. 3 weeks before this nightmare began, Victoria returned from Europe with Derek Wellington III, a mysterious fiancé she claimed to have met at an exclusive Swiss resort. From our first meeting, Derek radiated an unsettling coldness beneath his polished charm and sophisticated mannerisms. During family dinners, he would make subtle comments about how I seemed overly ambitious and clearly motivated by financial gain rather than family loyalty. My parents would laugh appreciatively at his observations, as if his veiled insults were brilliant insights into my character. My best friend Zoe had been warning me for weeks that something sinister was developing. She noticed my parents taking secretive phone calls, whispering in corners during family gatherings, and acting strangely evasive whenever I entered rooms where they were having private conversations. But I dismissed her concerns completely because I trusted my family absolutely and believed that my business success had finally earned their respect and appreciation. The first devastating betrayal occurred when I discovered my parents had secretly transferred all my business shares to Victoria without my knowledge or consent. I only learned about this when I attempted to access company financial records for a client presentation and was denied access to systems I had personally developed. When I confronted them about this shocking development, they claimed it was merely temporary paperwork adjustments for tax planning purposes. I should have investigated further immediately, but I believed their explanation because they were my parents. The engagement announcement came as another crushing blow to my sense of belonging in the family. I discovered Victoria's lavish engagement celebration through Instagram posts showing elaborate preparations at our family estate. When I asked my mother why I hadn't been informed about such an important family event, she responded dismissively, "We assumed you would be too busy with work responsibilities to care about family celebrations." 200 prominent guests had been invited to celebrate my sister's engagement, yet I wasn't even told the party was happening. On the night of the engagement party, I arrived to find Derek holding court among the guests, entertaining them with stories about his family's old money heritage and international business connections spanning multiple continents. My parents hung on his every word with obvious admiration while I stood nearby feeling like a complete stranger in my own childhood home. Victoria wore a $50,000 designer gown and jewelry worth more than most people's annual salaries, while her engagement ring alone cost more than $500,000. During the celebration, I overheard Derek discussing restructuring family assets and eliminating unnecessary financial complications with my father in hushed, serious tones. When I attempted to join their conversation to understand what they were planning, Derek smoothly changed the subject and my father walked away without explanation. That moment crystallized my growing realization that they had been orchestrating something behind my back for weeks or possibly months. The most painful revelation came from my assistant Carmen, whom I had trusted completely for 3 years. She admitted without any sign of guilt or remorse that she had been systematically reporting my every action to my parents, copying my private emails, and sharing confidential details about my client meetings and business strategies. This woman I had promoted multiple times, given substantial raises, and treated like family had been spying on me extensively while I remained completely unaware of her betrayal. The following morning arrived with a shock that shattered my understanding of reality. I walked into my office to find Victoria sitting confidently behind my desk, wearing an expensive business suit and displaying a triumphant smile that sent chills down my spine. 2 security guards flanked her position as she announced with obvious satisfaction, "Haley, meet your new Chief Executive Officer. I will be assuming control of all company operations effective immediately." I initially laughed, assuming this was some elaborate practical joke, until she handed me official termination papers bearing our parents' signatures. Carmen entered my office carrying an empty cardboard box, instructing me to pack my personal belongings while maintaining a cold, professional demeanor that was completely foreign to our previous relationship. As I stood there in complete disbelief, she revealed the extensive nature of her espionage activities. For months, she had been documenting my work habits, secretly recording my phone conversations, and photographing my computer screen to steal my business strategies. Every innovative campaign I had developed, every client relationship I had carefully cultivated, and every creative breakthrough I had achieved was now being transferred to Victoria's credit. The family lawyer, Richard Stone, arrived within the hour carrying a thick folder of legal documents that proved I had never actually owned any company shares despite my years of dedication and success. According to the carefully prepared paperwork, I had been nothing more than a highly compensated employee throughout my entire tenure at the company. Every contract I had negotiated, every business deal I had closed, and every strategic victory I had accomplished legally belonged to my parents and was now being transferred to Victoria. 7 years of my professional life had been erased through legal technicalities I never suspected existed. The character assassination campaign that followed demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that would have impressed political operatives. Within hours of my termination, my parents began systematically contacting my most important clients with fabricated stories about my supposed misconduct. They claimed I had been embezzling company funds, sabotaging business relationships out of jealousy toward Victoria, and planning to steal proprietary information to start a competing enterprise. They presented themselves as concerned family members trying to protect their clients from a dangerous and unstable individual. My professional reputation, built carefully over years of honest relationships and consistent success, crumbled with devastating speed. Former colleagues stopped returning my phone calls and emails. Major clients canceled scheduled meetings and threatened legal action based on the lies my parents had spread. Business partners who had praised my work for years suddenly viewed me as a potential criminal. The marketing industry operates as a tight-knit community where reputation is everything, and within 48 hours, I was completely blacklisted from the field I had dominated. The housing crisis struck with surgical precision. I had been renting a beautiful downtown loft for 4 years, always paying rent early and maintaining the property perfectly. But I discovered that my family secretly owned the building through a complex shell company arrangement, and they served me with an immediate eviction notice that provided no grace period or opportunity to find alternative housing. The notice stated simply that I needed to vacate immediately or face arrest for criminal trespassing. My financial destruction was executed with military precision. Every credit card I attempted to use was declined during a lunch meeting with a potential employer. All my bank accounts, business accounts, and credit lines were simultaneously frozen without warning. When I contacted my bank for an explanation, they informed me that fraud alerts had been placed on all my accounts and that investigations were pending. My parents had somehow convinced multiple financial institutions that I represented a serious security risk to their operations. The most devastating personal betrayal came from Taylor, my closest friend since childhood. We had grown up together, shared our deepest secrets, and supported each other through every challenge life had presented. But when Victoria offered her a lucrative position at the company, Taylor not only accepted immediately, but also provided written statements supporting my parents' false claims about my supposed misconduct and psychological instability. The person who knew me better than anyone else chose financial gain over decades of friendship without apparent hesitation. Derek orchestrated the final blow to my professional standing by systematically meeting with every one of my former competitors in the marketing industry. He presented himself as a concerned family member trying to contain the damage I had supposedly caused to the family business. He provided them with my complete client list, detailed information about my marketing strategies, and comprehensive intelligence about my business practices. Companies that had been trying unsuccessfully to steal my clients for years suddenly possessed everything they needed to destroy what remained of my professional reputation. Sleeping in my car behind a 24-hour diner represented the absolute lowest point of my existence, but it was there that Marcus Williams found me and changed everything. Marcus had served as our company's head accountant for 6 years, and I had always respected his meticulous attention to detail and unwavering commitment to financial integrity. He approached my car window nervously, constantly glancing around as if he might be under surveillance, then handed me a thick manila envelope that would become my salvation. "I kept detailed copies of everything," Marcus whispered urgently while scanning the parking lot for potential threats. "Your actual work, your real results, your genuine contributions to the company's success." I suspected something like this betrayal might eventually happen, so I secretly documented every project you led, every major client you brought in, and every dollar of revenue you generated over the past 7 years. Your parents have been systematically lying about your role and value for months, but I have concrete proof of what you actually accomplished. Inside that envelope was irrefutable evidence of my contributions to the company's success. Marcus had meticulously recorded every marketing campaign I had created, every innovative strategy one had developed, and every significant achievement I had accomplished during my tenure. He possessed emails definitively proving that I had personally generated over 90% of the company's revenue throughout the previous 7 years. His copied financial records showed exactly how much profit my work had created and documented how little Victoria had contributed during her extended European vacation. Benjamin Carter was the attorney Marcus recommended, a legal professional who specialized in corporate fraud cases and complex family disputes. When I explained that I lacked the financial resources to pay his substantial fees, Benjamin carefully reviewed Marcus's comprehensive documentation and agreed to represent me on a pro bono basis. He stated that my case presented such compelling evidence and the circumstances were so egregious that he believed we could not only clear my name completely, but also expose my family's extensive criminal activities. During our initial consultation, Benjamin revealed information that shocked me to my core. My family had hired private investigators to conduct comprehensive surveillance of my activities for the previous 4 months. These investigators had been systematically tracking my phone communications, following me to business meetings, and even installing hidden cameras in my office to monitor my daily activities. The surveillance team had been building an extensive file designed to be used against me, documenting anything that could potentially be manipulated or misinterpreted to support their narrative of professional misconduct. My cousin Lily had always been like an older sister to me throughout our childhood and young adult years. When I desperately reached out to her for emotional support and potential testimony about my character, she initially promised to help and even offered to provide statements about my integrity and work ethic. However, when Benjamin's legal team formally deposed her under oath, Lily completely reversed her position and provided testimony that was devastating to my case. She claimed I had always displayed jealousy toward Victoria, that I had made inappropriate comments about wanting to take complete control of the family business, and that I had exhibited increasingly concerning behavior patterns in recent months. Marcus and I weren't simply gathering evidence to defend ourselves against false accusations. We were methodically building a comprehensive case to expose years of criminal activity by my parents. Marcus had discovered extensive documentation of systematic tax evasion, numerous illegal business practices, and fraudulent reporting to various government agencies spanning multiple years. My parents had been using the company as a vehicle to launder money, avoid paying millions in legitimate taxes, and conceal assets in offshore accounts. Their substantial wealth wasn't built solely on my hard work. It was constructed on a foundation of deliberate criminal activity. The breakthrough in our investigation came when Marcus revealed Derek's true identity through his extensive contacts in international finance. Derek Wellington III did not actually exist as a real person. The sophisticated man my sister was planning to marry was actually Daniel Warren, a convicted international con artist who had systematically targeted wealthy families across 3 continents using various false identities. He specialized in manipulating family dynamics to gain access to substantial inheritances before disappearing with the money and moving on to his next victims. Benjamin connected me with Emma Rodriguez, an experienced investigative journalist who had built her career exposing corporate fraud and family corruption cases. Emma had been tracking similar criminal patterns for years and immediately recognized the significance of my story. She began conducting her own independent investigation into my family's business practices, while I provided crucial insider information about their recent activities and Derek's increasingly suspicious behavior patterns. Our first significant legal victory occurred when Benjamin successfully filed for a temporary injunction preventing my family from accessing or utilizing my intellectual property. The presiding judge carefully reviewed our substantial evidence and agreed that serious questions existed regarding the actual ownership of the marketing strategies, client relationships, and business innovations that had driven the company's success. For the first time in weeks of feeling completely powerless, I experienced genuine hope that justice might actually be achievable through the legal system. Emma's comprehensive investigation into Derek's background revealed a horrifying truth that extended far beyond simple financial fraud. Daniel Warren had spent the previous 15 years methodically perfecting an elaborate con game specifically designed to target wealthy families with adult children who could be systematically manipulated against each other. He had successfully stolen over $40 million from prominent families in Switzerland, Monaco, and Argentina before setting his sights on my family as his next victims. His methodology involved convincing parents to completely disinherit one child in favor of another, then disappearing with the concentrated wealth while leaving behind destroyed family relationships. The most shocking discovery was that my parents were being systematically blackmailed by Derek, who had somehow uncovered extensive evidence of their illegal offshore banking activities, their sophisticated tax evasion schemes, and their historical pattern of defrauding various business partners over the past 2 decades. Derek wasn't simply conning them for Victoria's inheritance money. He was actively extorting them to prevent exposure of crimes they had committed long before he entered their lives. 20 years earlier, my parents had built the foundation of their current fortune by systematically stealing from Helen Mitchell, the grieving widow of their deceased business partner. When Thomas Mitchell died unexpectedly in a car accident, my parents manipulated his emotionally devastated wife into believing their shared business was essentially worthless and convinced her to sell her ownership stake for a small fraction of its actual value. They then immediately sold the company for $20 million and used those proceeds to establish their current marketing empire. Derek had somehow discovered this long-buried secret and was using it as leverage to control their decisions. The FBI raid on my temporary apartment occurred without any warning at 6 o'clock in the morning. Federal agents burst through my door with weapons drawn, claiming they possessed solid evidence that I was actively involved in corporate espionage and was planning to steal valuable trade secrets from my former employer. I was arrested, handcuffed, and dragged away in full view of news cameras while my family's false accusations were treated as established facts by law enforcement officers. The 48 hours I spent in county jail represented the absolute nadir of my entire existence. While I sat in a cramped cell wearing an orange jumpsuit and trying to process the magnitude of my family's betrayal, my parents and Victoria were hosting another elaborate celebration at the family mansion. Victoria posted numerous photos on her social media accounts showing them raising champagne glasses and toasting, justice finally being served, and protecting our family business from those who would destroy it from within. They weren't simply celebrating my arrest. They were publicly humiliating me while I remained powerless to defend myself or respond to their accusations. Benjamin and Emma worked continuously around the clock to prove my complete innocence of all charges. Their investigation revealed that the evidence supposedly linking me to corporate espionage had been entirely fabricated using files from my own computer, which Carmen had systematically copied during her months of covert surveillance activities. The corporate espionage charges completely collapsed when Benjamin conclusively proved that the allegedly stolen information had actually belonged to me originally and that my family had committed the actual theft. The most unexpected development came when Victoria appeared at the county jail during official visiting hours, looking genuinely terrified and constantly scanning her surroundings as if she feared being followed or observed. She whispered urgently that she had discovered Derek's true identity and criminal background, but that our parents were now threatening to completely disown her as well if she spoke publicly about what she had learned. She confessed that she was beginning to understand she was simply another victim in Derek's elaborate criminal scheme, but she was too frightened of the consequences to come forward with the truth. Derek's financial demands had escalated far beyond anything my parents had originally anticipated when they first agreed to cooperate with his plans. He was now demanding an immediate additional payment of $20 million, or he would expose their illegal offshore bank accounts to federal tax investigators. The engagement party gift of $55 million was no longer sufficient for his purposes. He intended to systematically drain every penny of their accumulated wealth before disappearing completely and leaving the family to face serious criminal charges. Victoria revealed that Derek had become increasingly violent and controlling as the financial pressure mounted and his elaborate scheme faced potential exposure. He had made explicit threats to kill her if she attempted to leave him or expose his criminal activities to law enforcement. She showed me fresh bruises on her arms where he had grabbed her forcefully during recent arguments about money and her growing reluctance to continue participating in his deception of our parents. The conspiracy extended much deeper into our community than any of us had initially realized. Derek maintained a network of accomplices in banking institutions, local law enforcement, and even regional media outlets. The private investigators my parents believed they had hired independently were actually Derek's criminal associates who were feeding him continuous information to use against both me and my parents, while positioning himself to steal everything and disappear without a trace. Working secretly with Victoria provided me access to information that revealed the true extent of our family's criminal activities spanning over 2 decades. Derek hadn't stumbled accidentally across evidence of their past crimes. He had conducted extensive research into their background before specifically targeting them as ideal victims. Our parents had been operating sophisticated illegal schemes for over 20 years, systematically stealing from business partners, evading millions in federal taxes, and concealing vast amounts of money in untraceable offshore accounts. Their entire accumulated fortune was built on a foundation of fraud, theft, and deliberate criminal activity. The complete story of Helen Mitchell's destruction was far more horrific than Emma had initially uncovered through her preliminary investigation. After stealing her deceased husband's business through manipulation and fraud, our parents had systematically destroyed every aspect of Helen's remaining life to prevent her from seeking justice or exposing their crimes. They had deliberately ruined her credit rating, used their business connections to have her blacklisted from potential employment opportunities, and even convinced her own children that she was suffering from mental illness and couldn't be trusted. Helen Mitchell had died alone in poverty while our parents lived in luxury built entirely on her husband's life work. Victoria's detailed confession about Derek's escalating threats opened a horrifying new chapter in our understanding of his criminal psychology. He had been physically abusing her for weeks, systematically isolating her from any remaining friends or support systems, and monitoring her every movement to prevent her from seeking help or escaping his control. When she had attempted to resist his increasingly outrageous demands for additional money, he had locked her in their luxury hotel suite for 2 complete days without food or water. My sister had essentially become a prisoner, too terrified to attempt escape or reach out for assistance. The 6th organized attack against me manifested in the form of hired criminals who approached me outside Benjamin's law office with thinly veiled threats. 2 large men claiming to represent concerned family members informed me that I should immediately drop my legal case against the family if I wanted to avoid unfortunate accidents that could befall people who refused to listen to reasonable advice. I realized with growing horror that my parents were now willing to employ violence and physical intimidation to protect their secrets and maintain their control over the situation. Benjamin immediately arranged for both Victoria and me to relocate to a secure, safe house to protect us from the escalating threats against our safety. The threats were becoming increasingly serious and specific, requiring professional protection while we continued gathering evidence to expose Derek's criminal network and our parents' decades of illegal activity. The safe house was a modest apartment in an undisclosed location across the city, protected by experienced security professionals who specialized in safeguarding witnesses in high-stakes criminal cases. Emma's media investigation was attracting significant national attention as her articles about sophisticated family fraud and international con artists caught the interest of federal investigators who had been independently tracking Daniel Warren's criminal activities across multiple countries. Our story was expanding beyond our family's personal tragedy. It was exposing an entire network of professional criminals who systematically targeted wealthy families through elaborate manipulation schemes. Derek's reaction to the growing media attention was swift, violent, and desperate. He contacted the corrupt police chief, who we later discovered had been receiving regular bribes from our parents for years, and filed false accusations claiming that I had attempted to murder him. Fabricated evidence was planted in my temporary hotel room, including threatening letters supposedly written in my handwriting and weapons that had been purchased using my stolen credit card information. I was arrested again, this time facing serious felony charges that could result in decades in federal prison. The depth of corruption in local law enforcement was far more extensive than we had initially suspected. The police department had been accepting substantial bribes from my family for years, helping them cover up various criminal activities and intimidate anyone who threatened their business interests or attempted to expose their illegal practices. When federal agents finally assumed control of the investigation, they discovered extensive files documenting years of illegal collaboration between my parents and corrupt law enforcement officials. Victoria's decision to speak up despite the personal danger probably saved both our lives. She contacted FBI agent Rachel Stone directly, providing crucial evidence of Derek's explicit death threats, comprehensive documentation of his true criminal identity, and detailed information about his plans to kill both of us before fleeing the country with the stolen money. Agent Stone had been tracking Daniel Warren for 3 years across multiple jurisdictions and immediately understood the scope and seriousness of the criminal conspiracy we had uncovered. The safe house became our operational headquarters for planning the final confrontation with Derek and our parents. Victoria, Marcus, Benjamin, Emma, and I worked together intensively to compile every piece of evidence we had gathered over months of investigation. We possessed comprehensive documentation of Derek's international con game, concrete proof of our parents' extensive criminal history, substantial evidence of police corruption at multiple levels, and sworn testimony from other victims who had been located by federal investigators conducting parallel investigations. FBI agent Rachel Stone emerged as our most powerful advocate when she fully grasped the international scope of Daniel Warren's sophisticated criminal network. She had been methodically tracking Warren across 3 continents for several years and had been waiting for the right opportunity to build a comprehensive case that would ensure his permanent incarceration. Our family's situation provided the crucial evidence she needed to connect Warren definitively to more than a dozen similar cons and prove conclusively that he was operating an extensive international fraud operation targeting wealthy families. Corporate whistleblowers began courageously coming forward after Emma's investigative articles gained widespread national attention and media coverage. Former employees who had been systematically fired or seriously intimidated by my parents over the years finally found the courage to speak publicly about the extensive illegal activities they had personally witnessed. Even Carmen, my former assistant, eventually admitted that she had been blackmailed into spying on me after my parents discovered she had been stealing small amounts of petty cash from company accounts and threatened to have her prosecuted for theft. Marcus had documented every aspect of the company's operations with remarkable precision and thoroughness. His meticulously maintained evidence clearly demonstrated not only that I had personally generated the vast majority of the company's revenue, but also revealed exactly how my parents had systematically hidden substantial profits in offshore accounts specifically to avoid paying legitimate federal taxes. He had carefully preserved copies of forged financial documents, secretly recorded incriminating conversations about illegal activities, and even photographed suspicious meetings between my parents and their various criminal associates. Victoria's decision to provide public testimony represented a tremendous breakthrough in our case, despite the serious personal risks involved. Despite receiving explicit death threats from Derek and intense pressure from our parents to remain silent, she agreed to appear on Emma's primetime investigative news program and tell the complete truth about everything she had witnessed and experienced. She courageously showed her physical injuries on camera, played audio recordings of Derek's threatening phone calls, and provided original documents proving his real identity and criminal background. Her bravery inspired several other victims of similar schemes to come forward with their own detailed stories and evidence. My parents' response to the growing evidence against them was predictably desperate and legally aggressive. They hired teams of expensive lawyers to file numerous motions claiming that both Victoria and I were mentally incompetent and therefore couldn't be trusted to manage our own legal affairs or provide reliable testimony. They brought in psychiatrists willing to testify that we were suffering from shared delusions, seeking attention through false accusations, and possibly dangerous to ourselves and others. This legal warfare strategy was specifically designed to bankrupt us financially and destroy our credibility before a jury. However, the business community had decisively turned against my parents once the extensive evidence of their criminal activities became public knowledge. Local business leaders who had been quietly intimidated into silence for years finally spoke publicly about the bribes they had been forced to pay, the threats they had received for refusing to cooperate, and the various illegal activities they had personally witnessed but had been too afraid to report. The Chamber of Commerce formally expelled my parents from membership, and several major corporate clients immediately canceled contracts worth millions of dollars in annual revenue. Derek's desperation reached increasingly dangerous levels as his carefully constructed plan began systematically falling apart under federal investigation. He attempted to secretly transfer $15 million to accounts he controlled in the Cayman Islands, but federal agents had been monitoring all his financial activities and successfully froze the transactions before the money could be moved. When he realized that his primary escape route had been effectively blocked, he became increasingly erratic and violent toward everyone in his immediate vicinity. The comprehensive evidence compilation represented one of the most extensive criminal investigations in state history. Our combined documentation included proof of fraud spanning more than 20 years, evidence of sophisticated international money laundering operations, sworn testimony from multiple victims across different countries, audio recordings of explicitly criminal conversations, and substantial evidence of corruption within local law enforcement. Agent Stone commented that it represented one of the most thorough and well-documented criminal cases she had encountered during her federal career. Derek made one final desperate attempt to escape justice by convincing our parents to liquidate all their remaining assets and meet him at a private airfield where a chartered jet was allegedly waiting to transport them to South America. He claimed they could all disappear together and live comfortably on the stolen money while successfully avoiding prosecution by American authorities. What he deliberately concealed from them was his actual plan to kill them both once they were outside the United States and keep all the money for himself. The court's decision to freeze all family assets pending the completion of the investigation represented our first major legal victory. Judge Patricia Williams carefully reviewed our extensive evidence and determined that probable cause clearly existed to believe that the family's accumulated wealth had been obtained through systematic criminal activity. No one could access any of the frozen funds until the investigation was completely finished, which effectively trapped Derek and prevented him from fleeing the country with the stolen money. Derek's arrest at the airport was captured by news cameras and became a spectacular media event that dominated national headlines for days. FBI agents surrounded him as he attempted to board a private charter jet with $15 million in cash and uncut diamonds hidden in specially designed luggage compartments. The dramatic arrest footage of Derek being forcibly dragged away in handcuffs while screaming threats at the arresting officers became viral content across social media platforms. For the first time in months of feeling completely powerless, I experienced genuine hope that justice might actually be achievable. Our parents' panicked response to Derek's arrest was immediate and painfully obvious to everyone observing their behavior. Within hours of Derek being taken into federal custody, they contacted Benjamin through their expensive legal representatives, desperately claiming they had been innocent victims of Derek's masterful manipulation and had never intended to commit any crimes whatsoever. They attempted to portray themselves as naive victims who had been systematically deceived by a professional criminal mastermind, completely ignoring their decades of independent criminal activity. Their attempt to make Derek a scapegoat for all criminal activity completely collapsed when Agent Stone revealed the extensive evidence documenting their crimes dating back over 20 years, long before Derek had ever entered their lives or learned of their existence. The systematic theft from Helen Mitchell, the sophisticated tax evasion schemes, the international money laundering operations, the corruption of local police officers, all of these criminal activities had been entirely their own illegal enterprise. Derek had simply recognized and exploited their existing corruption for his own financial purposes. The most disgusting and morally reprehensible betrayal attempt came when my parents tried to frame Victoria as the actual mastermind behind the entire criminal conspiracy. They claimed through their lawyers that Victoria had secretly recruited Derek to help her steal the family fortune and that I was her willing accomplice in this elaborate scheme. According to their newly fabricated narrative, Victoria had been planning this sophisticated criminal operation for years while pretending to study art and photography in Europe. Victoria and I responded to our parents' desperate lies by presenting a completely united front against their false accusations. We organized a joint press conference where we systematically detailed every abuse we had suffered, every betrayal we had experienced, and every crime we had personally witnessed our parents commit over the years. Victoria courageously showed her medical records documenting Derek's extensive physical abuse, while I presented comprehensive evidence of our parents' systematic destruction of my professional life and personal reputation. The resulting media coverage was overwhelming, with news outlets calling our story the most shocking family betrayal of the century. The business consequences for my parents were swift and absolutely devastating to their remaining operations. Every single major client immediately canceled their existing contracts without any grace period or opportunity for renegotiation. The company's stock price collapsed completely as investors fled in panic. Business partners who had worked with them for decades publicly distanced themselves from any association and demanded comprehensive investigations into all past business dealings. The marketing empire I had spent 7 years building was completely destroyed, but at least the truth about their criminal activities was finally public knowledge. Federal criminal charges were formally filed against my parents, Derek, and 6 accomplices including Carmen, the corrupt police chief, and several business associates who had actively participated in the money laundering operations. The federal prosecutor described it as the largest and most complex family fraud case in state history and promised to seek maximum sentences for everyone involved in the criminal conspiracy. My civil lawsuit victory came much sooner than Benjamin had predicted based on typical court schedules. Judge Williams awarded me $45 million in damages from frozen family assets, ruling that I had been the clear victim of an extensive criminal conspiracy and that my intellectual property and business contributions had been stolen through systematic fraud. The judge's written statement characterized my case as representing the most egregious example of family betrayal imaginable and declared that substantial financial damages were necessary to provide meaningful justice. Victoria's unexpected decision to split her remaining inheritance with me was completely voluntary and demonstrated her commitment to rebuilding our relationship on honest principles. After all legal fees were paid and government asset seizures were completed, Victoria retained approximately $10 million from her original trust fund. She insisted on giving me half of this amount, stating that she wanted to begin her new life with a completely clean conscience and rebuild our sisterly relationship on a foundation of mutual respect and honesty. The intense media circus that followed our story was necessary for exposing the truth, but emotionally exhausting to experience personally. Our case became a cautionary tale about family loyalty, criminal manipulation, and the critical importance of speaking truth to power regardless of personal consequences. Emma's comprehensive documentary about our experiences won several prestigious journalism awards and inspired other fraud victims across the country to find the courage to come forward with their own stories of family betrayal and criminal victimization. The trial proceedings became a media sensation that captured sustained national attention for 6 intensive weeks of testimony and evidence presentation. Each day of the trial brought shocking new revelations about the true extent of my family's criminal empire and Derek's sophisticated international con operations. The prosecution presented evidence so comprehensive and overwhelming that the defense attorneys struggled to mount any credible challenge to the mountain of documented criminal activity. Derek's conviction on all federal charges came first and resulted in the harshest sentence possible under federal guidelines. Federal prosecutors successfully proved that he had systematically stolen over $60 million from wealthy families across 4 countries and had been actively planning to murder both Victoria and me to eliminate potential witnesses to his crimes. The federal judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison without any possibility of parole, describing him as a dangerous predator who destroys families and lives for personal financial gain. My parents' trial was equally devastating for their remaining reputation and freedom. 20 years of systematic criminal activity was methodically exposed in excruciating detail, from the original theft of Helen Mitchell's business to their recent conspiracy to destroy my life and career. Former business associates testified extensively about bribes they had been forced to pay, threats they had received for refusing to participate in illegal schemes, and various criminal activities they had personally witnessed. The presiding judge sentenced both of them to 8 years in federal prison, stating that their systematic betrayal of fundamental family bonds made them particularly dangerous criminals who posed a serious threat to society. Carmen received a 3-year federal sentence for her extensive role in corporate espionage and fraud conspiracy. During her sentencing hearing, she finally displayed genuine remorse for her actions, apologizing to me publicly and admitting that she had been motivated entirely by greed rather than any legitimate grievance against my professional conduct. Her betrayal had been particularly painful for me because I had trusted her completely and had always treated her with respect and generosity. The corrupt police chief was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay substantial restitution to all the victims his department had helped my parents intimidate and silence over many years. Several other police officers lost their jobs permanently and forfeited their pension benefits when the federal investigation revealed the full extent of their participation in covering up my family's criminal activities and accepting bribes to ignore obvious illegal behavior. Business restoration proved more complicated and challenging than I had initially anticipated despite our legal victories. While I had regained complete legal control of the company through court orders, most of our former clients had permanently fled and the business brand was irreparably damaged by the extensive negative publicity. Victoria and I made the strategic decision to start completely fresh with a new company name and an absolute commitment to total transparency in all our business practices and client relationships. Former colleagues who had quickly abandoned me when my parents spread their malicious lies came desperately seeking forgiveness and offering to work for substantially reduced salaries. I was able to forgive some of them because they had genuinely been victims of my parents' sophisticated manipulation and disinformation campaign, but others who had actively participated in destroying my professional reputation were permanently banned from any association with our new business operations. My personal relationship with Benjamin had evolved naturally from strictly professional to deeply personal during our months of working together through the legal battles. He had witnessed me at my absolute lowest point and had fought tirelessly for justice without expecting any personal benefit or romantic relationship in return. When the intense legal proceedings finally concluded, we continued spending time together socially and gradually realized we had developed genuine feelings that extended far beyond our attorney-client relationship. Victoria's transformation throughout this ordeal was remarkable and inspiring to witness personally. The frightened, manipulated young woman who had been systematically terrorized by Derek gradually became a strong, confident businesswoman who insisted on earning her position in our new company rather than simply inheriting it based on family connections. She enrolled in graduate business school and worked in entry-level positions to learn every aspect of our industry from the ground up. Community recognition for our courage in exposing family corruption came in various forms, including business awards and speaking opportunities. But the most meaningful acknowledgement came from other victims of family fraud who contacted us seeking help with their own situations. Victoria and I established a charitable foundation specifically designed to assist people who had been betrayed by family members and needed legal or financial support to seek justice and rebuild their lives. 2 years after that horrible night when I stood alone in the family driveway clutching a single suitcase, while my life fell apart, I'm now sitting in the executive office of Richardson Martinez Marketing, the thriving company Victoria and I built together from absolutely nothing. Our new business is currently worth $150 million, but far more importantly, it's constructed on genuine principles of honesty, mutual respect, and authentic partnership rather than manipulation, exploitation, and systematic betrayal. The emotional healing journey required extensive time and professional support to process the deep trauma of family betrayal and learn to trust people again. Weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Chin helped me understand that my personal worth isn't determined by my family's approval or acceptance, and that healthy relationships absolutely require mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The wounded child inside me who had desperately craved her parents' love and recognition finally learned to release that impossible dream and find peace. Victoria and I rebuilt our sisterly relationship slowly and very carefully over many months of honest communication and shared experiences. We began as equal business partners, learning to communicate openly about our feelings and support each other's professional decisions without competition or resentment. Gradually, we developed into genuine sisters for the first time in our entire lives, supporting each other through challenges and celebrating each other's successes without jealousy or manipulation. My romantic relationship with Benjamin deepened naturally and authentically as we both healed from the trauma of fighting for justice together against overwhelming odds. He had witnessed me at my absolute worst moments and still chose to remain by my side when I had nothing to offer except determination, hope, and gratitude for his support. We moved in together last year and are currently planning a wedding based on genuine partnership, mutual respect, and authentic love rather than family expectations, social pressure, or financial considerations. Victoria discovered her own happiness and healing through her relationship with Thomas Garcia, a certified public accountant she met through Marcus, who values her intelligence, strength, and integrity rather than her family money or social connections. Thomas treats her with consistent kindness and respect, helping her continue healing from Derek's systematic abuse while supporting her professional growth and personal development. Their relationship embodies everything her engagement to Derek wasn't: honest communication, mutual support, and genuine care for each other's happiness and well-being. Our parents continue sending letters from federal prison attempting to manipulate us into forgiveness and reconciliation, but Victoria and I have maintained our firm decision to refuse all contact and communication. Their letters consistently claim they have found religion during incarceration, that they feel genuine remorse for their actions, and that they desperately want to make amends for the harm they caused. However, we learned through painful experience that words mean nothing without changed behavior, and people capable of betraying their own children so completely and systematically cannot be trusted with any opportunity for continued manipulation. Derek made one final pathetic attempt to manipulate me 6 months ago by calling from federal prison claiming he possessed crucial information about other fraud victims who allegedly needed my assistance to seek justice. I immediately hung up and blocked all future communication attempts. Some individuals are fundamentally evil in their core nature, and providing them with any opportunity to cause additional harm represents dangerous naivety that could endanger innocent people. The mentorship role I've embraced with other family fraud victims has become deeply meaningful and personally rewarding work. Through our charitable foundation, Victoria and I have successfully helped dozens of people who were systematically betrayed by trusted relatives, stolen from by family members, or manipulated by con artists specifically targeting their families. We provide comprehensive legal assistance, financial support for rebuilding their lives, and emotional guidance to help them process trauma and move forward with confidence. Our company's remarkable success has attracted significant national attention from business publications and industry organizations, but we've remained consistently focused on our core mission of maintaining ethical business practices and genuinely caring for our employees' well-being. We offer comprehensive mental health benefits, flexible work arrangements that respect work-life balance, and profit-sharing programs that ensure everyone shares meaningfully in our collective success. The company culture we've created represents the complete opposite of the toxic, exploitative environment my parents had maintained. Recent speaking engagements have taken me across the country to share our story with business organizations, legal professional groups, and family counseling centers. The audience response is consistently the same. People express shock at the depth of betrayal we experienced, but feel inspired by our ability to rebuild our lives and create something positive from such devastating circumstances. Victoria frequently joins me for these presentations, and her perspective on overcoming manipulation and abuse adds significant power and authenticity to our message. The most important life lesson that emerged from this traumatic experience is both simple and profound. Biological family relationships don't automatically create genuine family bonds or guarantee loyalty and love. Real family connections are built through consistent demonstration of loyalty, respect, and authentic care for each other's well-being. The people who genuinely love you will celebrate your success rather than attempting to destroy it out of jealousy or greed. Sometimes the healthiest and most necessary choice is walking away completely from toxic family members who consistently cause harm. Standing here in my office overlooking the city where I almost lost everything that mattered to me, I realize I've successfully built something far more valuable than money, business success, or social recognition. I've created genuine relationships founded on truth, mutual respect, and authentic support during both good times and challenging periods. Victoria and I aren't simply business partners sharing office space. We're real sisters who consciously chose to love and protect each other despite our painful shared history. My phone rings with yet another call from someone who needs help escaping family fraud and rebuilding their shattered life. I smile genuinely as I answer because I know exactly how to guide them through the process of seeking justice and emerging stronger than before. The profound pain my parents inflicted led me to discover a purpose I never could have imagined: helping other people survive devastating betrayal and find the strength to create better lives for themselves. Sometimes the greatest victories and most meaningful achievements emerge from the deepest losses and most painful experiences. What would you do if your own family systematically betrayed you this completely and destroyed everything you had worked to build? Have you ever experienced serious manipulation or abuse from people you trusted absolutely? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, because your story might provide hope and guidance to someone else who's currently facing similar betrayal and wondering if recovery is possible. Don't forget to hit that like button if you believe justice is always worth fighting for, regardless of how impossible it might seem. And subscribe for more stories about overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds and finding inner strength during the darkest periods of life. Please share this video with anyone who needs to understand they're not alone in facing family betrayal or manipulation. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but ultimately healing journey, and always remember that your personal worth and value aren't determined by how others choose to treat you, but by how you decide to rise above their harmful actions and create something meaningful from your experiences. Stay strong, remain true to your authentic self, and never abandon hope that justice and genuine healing are possible even after the most devastating betrayals life can deliver.